Hi, this is Rev May here. Glad you're joining me today on my channel. I know God's been good to me. I'm sure God's been good to you. Today we're going to talk about the power of a choice. The power of a choice. And just before we do, I want to remind you, please subscribe, bottom right hand button. If you could hit that, and if you give me a thumbs up, or at the end there'll be a picture of me, a round picture on the bottom. If you hit that, you can subscribe that way. All right, we're going to get right into it. The power of a choice. We are our own worst enemies. Nobody hurts us more than we do. But the choices that we make every day to either do good or to do bad, you have to make a choice. A quick example. A few days ago, I had a lady run a stop sign, and I had to lock my brakes up, and she stopped, about halfway in front of my truck. Definitely going to hit her if I hadn't locked them up. She started screaming and hollering at me and gave me a finger and you name it. I had a choice to make. Am I going to stick my head out the window and tell her, stupid lady, you ran the stop sign. You're the one that caused this, not me. I didn't have a stop sign. She did. I had a choice to make. I chose not to do anything. I just sit there and did nothing. And she hollered for maybe 30, 40 seconds, put a few obscenities in there, made a couple gestures, and then she peeled off. I backed my truck up about a foot because I was afraid the way she was acting, she was going to clip me. So I backed up a little bit and she took off. And then I went on my way. I had a choice to make. Am I bragging on myself? No, I'm just trying to show you every day you have a choice to make. Okay? You have a choice to make and you need to choose the right things. The power of a choice can make you a better person or it can ruin you by making the wrong choice. Joshua 24:15 says, "It is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord. Choose you for yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which we were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land that you are living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." You need to make a choice. Am I going to serve God, or am I going to live for my own self and do what I want to do? And I make all the choices. You're going to make bad choices. Nobody makes perfect choices, but you make a lot less mistakes when you're letting the Lord help you make the choices. We must choose to do the right thing every day. It's not easy. It's much easier for that woman to scream, cuss, holler at me than it is for her to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up. I'm sorry, I ran the stop sign." That's a rarity you ever see that. They always want to blame someone else. I think I got a sermon on here somewhere about shifting responsibility. People do that all the time. "Oh, I spilled hot coffee on me. McDonald's should have put a bigger sign up to tell me that I could burn myself." You're a moron. You ordered coffee. You didn't order iced coffee, and they hand you out that breakfast sandwich, and they hand you a hot cup of coffee. If you spill it on yourself, that's your fault, not theirs. How many signs do people have to put up so people will quit doing stupid stuff? But people like to shift responsibility. They always want, if they have a wreck on the highway and they were driving too fast, they were whipping in and out of lanes, they lost control and hit the wall, then they bounced out and hit you, then they want to blame you. They hit me. It is the way it is. There was a man about a year ago that ran a red light and almost hit me, and almost hit a United States Post Office truck. He got our light turned green. The postman was on that side of the street. I was on this side of the street, and we were going like this, and that guy went right in between us and never stopped. We both locked him up. I looked over, and I thought, I'm going to chase him and give his number to the police before he kills somebody. Very next red light, he ran it and broadside a woman. Really bad. I mean, he hit her. He never hit his brakes. And the police came out, and I sit in my truck. I was like 6 feet from them with my flashers on because I wanted to make sure that lady was all right. The postal worker ran up to me and said, look, you kind of watch everything. I'm going to check on that woman. And he ran over to the car. And so I sit there. When the police arrived, after they looked everything over, they were standing right next to my truck, 3 or 4 feet from my truck, and so was the guy that hit her. And he said to the policeman said, what happened? He said, that woman ran a red light, and I hit her. All right? She was crying, and she was in pain. And so she was like 6 or 8 feet the other way from him, laying on the ground. And the policeman said, so she run the red light, and you hit her? He said, yes, I did. He goes, I tried to stop, but she just pulled right out. And so policeman's taking notes. And I said, are you going to stick to that story? And he looked up at me and turned his head, and the policeman looked at me. I said, he goes, did you witness the wreck? I said, yeah, if you give me just a second, you'll find out. I said, did you say that she ran a red light and you hit her? He goes, yeah. I said, that's not what happened. It's the other way around. Oh, no, I had the light. I said, no, you didn't. He goes, yeah. I said, okay. Well, he said, going to have you fill out an accident report. You going to stick to that story? And he just stared at me. He didn't say anything. I said, you might want to not write out the wrong one and sign it, because then they can charge you with a crime. You need to tell the truth. And I said, cameras don't lie. And I got 3 cameras on my truck. And you ran 2 red lights. That's why I was coming up behind you. I was trying to stop you before you hit somebody. I didn't make it in time. And I said, you told the policeman you tried to stop. You never hit your brakes. Your taillights never came on. Look at the ground here. And he looked down at the ground. So the policeman, I said, you see any skid marks? If you were driving 40 miles an hour and you locked your brakes up, there'd be tar off your tires. There'd be parts on the ground. There's nothing there. You never stopped. You never even tapped your brakes. And you ran a red light and hit this poor woman. Then you're trying to blame her with a wreck. Well, then he turned around and said, well, I probably caused the wreck, probably, but I never ran that first red light. You can't tell me I did. I said, I don't have to. When I send the video over to the police, they'll see you ran 2 red lights. I said, sir, you're missing the whole thing here. That first red light's not your problem. Your second red light, where you ran it and T-boned this woman, that's your real problem. Yeah, but you ran 2 red lights, and I got it on video. Well, the sun was in my eyes. I couldn't see. I said, you're driving into the east, so maybe you should have slowed down. I see you got plates from Tennessee. You're not even from here. You're not from Missouri. I mean, is that the way they drive down there? Do you not, if you can't see and the sun's blinding you, you don't slow down? You don't use your visor? You don't put some sunglasses on and try to see what you're doing? You just drive 40 miles an hour straight and never hit your brakes. And almost, this woman, I don't know what's all wrong with her, but she's not well. Why? He had a choice to make. He chose to lie to the policeman. After he did that, that cop, whole attitude changed from that police officer. He was like really more stern with the guy, and then he come over and hand me his business card. He said, anyway, you can send me that footage. I said, be more than happy to do it, and it'll be done today. You'll have it today. He goes, thanks, I really appreciate it. And I said, well, it's kind of hard, believe his lying lips or believe the video. And he goes, well, he confessed pretty quick when you told him you had cameras on the truck. And I said, yeah, he sure did. He changed his tune. Well, it was probably my fault. Yeah, I ran the light. I hit her, but I didn't run that first light. That's the way people are. They always want to shift responsibility. And so I'm so glad I got cameras on my vehicles, because if some clown runs a light and hits me and says I ran it, it isn't going to work. Or as they say in my place, that dog won't hunt. We must choose every day to do the right thing or to do the wrong thing. We have to make choices each and every day, and sometimes we don't make the right choice. Right? We make mistakes. Sometimes we don't choose. If you don't think before you speak, sometimes you say things that are hurtful to people. Sometimes you say things that offends people because you're not filtering what you say. I'm going to give you a clue here real quick. You can't let everything that pops in your head come out of your mouth. All right? You've got to filter it. Because thoughts come in that aren't good thoughts. Doesn't mean you're sinning. Doesn't mean you're a sinner. Bad thoughts come in, but it's your obligation to make the right choice and push them out and replace them with good thoughts. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell the truth. You make a choice on what you want to do. If you make that choice, then you have to live with it. We have to make choices each and every day, but the Lord wants us to make smart choices, not stupid choices, and not do the wrong things. Always remember, we are our own worst enemy. All right? We must be aware that none of us is perfect, and none of us do everything right, and no man more than yourself knows that. We carry our worst enemies within us. This is what Charles Spurgeon said, and this was his saying. Always remember, we are our own worst enemies. We are to be aware of no man more than yourself. We carry our worst enemies within us. Charles Spurgeon, very brilliant preacher, very brilliant man, and that was his statement that he made. And it's true today, all these years, over 100 years later. We are our own worst enemies, and we make choices every day, and we need to choose to do the right thing. The right thing's not easy. If it was, everybody'd be making right choices. Sometimes people think it's easier to lie, or it's easier to do this or do that. But you have to filter what comes into your mind, and you have to make choices what comes out of your mouth and tell someone the right things. Because if you've had a kid that told their mother or their father, whoever it may be, that they hate them, and then they do it again a few days later, and they do it again a few days later, and 2 weeks later they tell her, I hate you, I wished you was dead, or stuff like that. I've heard this happen, all right? You've made all the wrong choices. Then you can go up to them 2 weeks later and say, well, I really didn't mean that. But then you turn around the next day and say, I hate you, I wish you was dead. If you keep doing stuff over and over, you mean it. All right? You mean what you say. So make the right choice. Say the right things. Filter your mind. Many times I started to say something, that little still voice, the Holy Spirit checks me and says, don't say nothing. And I'm ready to chime in because there's 6 or 7 people there talking, and this person's giving wrong information really bad. And I start to say something, and it checks me. All right? If I go on to say what I want to say, then I may offend someone. It may not be good to do it. But if I listen to that small, still voice and that Holy Spirit checking me saying, don't say nothing, I just kind of nod my head or smile. I turn around, I walk away. But why? Because you have to make the right choice. It's hard, especially when you got somebody that's an idiot that's saying all sorts of stuff that don't make sense. Now, I'm not talking about the Bible and all that. If they was saying false stuff about the Bible, I would chime in no matter what. But we're talking about stuff outside the church, personal stuff and things like that, and you know that what they just told them is not a fact, it's not true, etc., etc. You have to choose. Do I want to get into this dogfight, or do I want to walk away? I try my best to walk away every time. Have I ever done it my entire life? Sure. There's been times I went on and said, and then I regretted what I said and the way I said it. And then I had to, the thing about me is if I say something wrong or do something wrong and I know I'm wrong, I'll apologize. They don't have to look me up. I'll find them and I'll apologize to them and tell them I was wrong. Many times in my life I've had to apologize. All right? Don't like to do it, but I had to do it because it's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is not always the best way. The easy way, excuse me, it is the best way. The right way is the best way, but it's not always the easy way. All right? I love you. God loves you. I hope you got something out of this. The power of a choice. Every day you got choices to make. Make the right choices. Do what the Lord wants you to do and be the best person you can possibly be. And let me add this. Be a little bit like what I said I do. If you do make a mistake or you say something that offends somebody and you think I shouldn't have said that, correct it right then. Tell them I shouldn't have said that. That's bad on me. My bad. I'm sorry. I want to apologize to you. Take care of it right then. You never know when somebody may not wake up the next day, and then you think about that the rest of your life. The last thing I had a conversation with them, I was wrong and I offended them, and they'll eat at you. So take care of things. All right? Do it. God will love you for it, and you'll love yourself, and you'll feel a lot better. Thank you for your time this time. Till next time, I'm going to sign off. Please hit that round picture of me and subscribe and give me a thumbs up so I can get this pushed out to others. God bless you.